Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Damian G and Deo kind of spitballing this episode only because we're changing the name, formerly Podcast Champs, and we're in development with hopefully with Kat to figure out what name we should go with going forward. If anyone has any suggestions, feel free to tweet myself or Deo at DamianG347 or I'm just DEO. The topic of today was kind of one of those things where we didn't really watch a lot of wrestling, but a topic did come up during our pre-show chat, and a lot of it has to do with people who are unhappy in contracts in wrestling, and you can take that to all walks of life, from Sasha Banks to the Revival to now Luke Harper and people getting signed with organizations like AEW. The business world of contracts in sports is something that has entertained me more so than the actual event a lot of the time.
Right.
So now it seems that there is a mass wave of talent who is taking, I guess, liberties into their own hands to either strong arm their companies to get what they want, or basically saying, look, I'm going to take my ball and go home, similar to what Steve Austin did a few years ago when he didn't want to lose to Brock Lesnar on a randomly televised episode of Raw for a King of the Ring qualifier. So I think that's a great place for you and I to kind of delve into this, because you, Dio, have a legal background, and you and I have talked a lot about the fact that betting on yourself and believing your own talent can kind of push you toward taking more risks.
Right.
And these wrestlers, and this goes without saying with all professional athletes or anyone who wants to bet on their talents, this is the new way to take it. You know, I just had this conversation with someone where you can be unhappy at a job or at a place of business, and you can bet on yourself to A, get what you want via a raise or different perks, or B, say, you know what? I'm better than what I believe I'm better than what I'm getting right now. My worth is higher than that. And they wind up leaving. So I guess the first person that kind of did that was CM Punk recently over the last, 4 or 5 years?
Which I'm going to go ahead and say this: CM Punk is one of the most overrated performers of all time.
Okay.
I said what I said.
You have long stood by that. So,
yeah.
And I think he's a shrewd businessman. I think he may have an inflated opinion of himself.
Absolutely does.
And that's neither good nor bad. That is what we're basically saying. If you're willing to bet on yourself and your talents, we can't condemn you for thinking that you're better maybe than what you are in terms of your industry, but you're at least willing to take that chance. So, for instance, Luke Harper, who I just finished watching Worlds Collide, WWE NXT 205 Live, UK, kind of had like their access hodgepodge of old NXT versus new NXT.
Right.
And Luke Harper wrestled Donovan Dijak, and that's what I'm going to call him because that's what I know him to be in the Northeast when I was watching wrestling up there.
Right.
They probably had one of the best matches at Access.
Right.
And we talked off air about how Luke Harper, for 3 weeks, about a year and change ago, was the most over person on SmackDown, and it wasn't even close. Yeah. But yet he's asked for his release, and WWE hasn't granted him that. So the question I want to ask you is, from a legal perspective, even though he's requested his release, why do you think WWE, beside the obvious, is hesitant to say nope?
So just to give my background, I am a legal videographer. So I videotape the depositions for lawsuits. So I get to see all this stuff, what they end up arguing, all that. That's what my background in the legal industry is, right? So when it comes to why, this is just from a business standpoint. Like when you have someone like an AEW right now, you don't want to give them fodder in any way, shape, or form. You don't want to have any type of talent that they can go and poach for any of their upcoming shows. The first year of a business like this is going to be the most important one, right? Lucha Underground, which we will definitely have to go back and talk about that when it comes to legal stuff. But it makes sense if you are a business, right? And you put, say you have a competitor and you fire someone, or there's somebody that wants to leave, and this other business has some massive project that could, change the game essentially, right? You don't want to give them any type of ammunition to then take you out, essentially, right? So with the WWE and Vince McMahon right now, like, he's not going to want to give these people up, even though he's misusing them. We can all agree on that. Everybody's favorite, unless you are, Roman Reigns or one of the top guys per se, are getting misused. But yeah, from like a legal standpoint, like, of course you're not going to want to do that. And like the whole thing of freezing contracts, and if you are injured and you are out for X amount of time and then adding it to the contract, that's absolutely fine. I'm good with that, because when you are incapacitated, like, time should absolutely freeze on contracts. I'm sorry. I know people will argue against it, but if you sign a contract saying that you are going to do X for Y amount of time, you need to honor that, right? Unless there is some sort of like, catastrophic failure clause built into your contract or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. But this whole thing of like folks trying to strong arm the WWE, now is not the time that it's going to work, right? With AEW, had AEW not been a thing on the horizon, they probably would have granted his release. Mm. But the fact that same thing with Sasha. Sasha is a merch machine, right? Like, she is constantly one of the most over people in the company, period. And you don't want to let that go, right? You don't want to have one of your highest grossing, merch sellers to go to a competitor, because that sets a very dangerous precedent. Because if that person goes over to the competition and they're happy, they're going to relay that back to the people in the locker room, and that's going to breed mutiny. And eventually, when it's time for people's contracts and stuff to expire, and it's time to re-sign, people aren't going to come back. Like, because right now with AEW, it's the grass is greener on the other side. Right. There's no proof of concept of the product. Like, I know they've had events, but they don't have a TV show yet. They don't have a public deal, that is. But like right now, there's no proof of concept for this grand universe that they're essentially going to try to build, right? So right now, it's all speculation as to how much people are going to make, so on and so forth, how restrictive the contracts are. Because, I'm sorry, I know you guys, I've said it before, everybody thinks AEW is going to be this bastion of light in pro wrestling. It's not. When you have contracts like that, and when you have talent that can go elsewhere and can get hurt or can get stuck in other countries because of visa issues and so on and so forth, you can't have that when you are a company. So say your biggest star goes to wrestle in Mexico and they get injured, you're fucked. Your main star is now off the table. So in order to combat that, you have to have these restrictive clauses built into the contract saying you can't. So like with the whole WWE, right? When they signed all those people for NXT UK, mm-hmm. and people were like super upset. Oh my God, the contracts say they can't wrestle X, Y, and Z. There's a reason for that. You can't. So if this person wrestles someone from outside of the company's umbrella, because Evolve is under the umbrella of the WWE essentially now, right? Within them, the liability would then be on the WWE. They can take care of everything in-house. But if you go to Wrestle Circus and get injured, the WWE is going to sue Wrestle Circus, right? So this is a better thing. You don't want a large company that has an infinite resource for litigation, and they are very litigious.
Right.
They would crush a company like a Wrestle Circus. They would crush, AAW. Like the stuff is built into it for a reason. Because if you had, and the thing is, AEW would do the same thing. Lucha Underground. That's why they had super restrictive contracts, because they wanted to make sure that they had these people for the tapings. And we saw where Angelico And all of these other people ended up getting injured and were gone for large periods of time because they got injured on shows that were not under the Lucha Underground umbrella. See, so it's like you have to build stuff like this into it, because if you don't, you are setting yourself up for possible failure in the future, because your product will suffer if people have access to go everywhere they want, right? What happens if somebody goes to wrestle in like a country that has super restrictive laws on drinking or marijuana or something like that? We saw with
wasn't it Evan Bourne?
Evan Bourne, right?
That's Hidell, yeah.
Yeah, where he was possibly not going to leave a country.
He was literally detained for having marijuana.
For having marijuana in Japan, right? Like they have crazy laws when it comes to marijuana. So if you have a major star that does that, they are essentially going to be locked up indefinitely.
Right.
You can't have that. Right. There's a reason why they have these clauses. The UFC used to, I'm pretty sure they still do. They have these clauses where you have to, where like extreme sports and things like that are off the table for you, because if you injure yourself, you are, part of the product. You are their main, one of their main attractions. So you have to abide by these rules. So
while you're saying that, it actually brought to remembrance of, I remember Ricochet, before he debuted on the main roster, when he was an NXT talent, was scheduled to face Orange Cassidy at an Evolve event.
Right.
And then maybe 2 weeks later, he was called up to the main roster. Right. So once you're called up to the main roster, you can no longer appear in a wrestling capacity unless WWE signs off on it on any subsidiary within WWE. And a lot of people know or think they know that Evolve is a feeder system for WWE. It's almost as if it's their preliminary training grounds before you go over to NXT. Right. So what wound up happening was NXT wound up sending Velveteen Dream in Ricochet's place to wrestle a match against Orange Cassidy. Right. Also, they have loaned out the Street Profits to wrestle various tag teams in Evolve. It isn't the first time that they have lent out talents. I know Chris Hero is able to work kind of whatever he wants to work in terms of independent promotions, because he's more of a coach anyway.
He's a player coach at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are caveats in contracts that may allow players or wrestlers to be able to work other dates. But once you hit that main roster level, WWE is wise to take care of their investment to say, no, that's going to cost us money. Because as you just said, D, what if someone wrestles in, I don't know, pick a random, they wrestle in Australia, let's just say, and they get hurt on the flight back, because that's a 24-hour flight from New York to, let's say, back to Australia. Let's just say someone gets hurt at the airport carrying their luggage.
Right.
They're asked out the rest of the way through for a long time.
Right. I mean, hell, like fucking Randy Orton basically destroyed his entire shoulder taking out the trash one day. So it's like, imagine what happens like if you got to listen. So yeah, it's absolutely plausible for this stuff to happen. There's precedent set for all of this.
So let's flip it around a little bit and say, what are the talent thinking when they've requested their release and WWE has kind of reached an impasse, or any place has reached an impasse with them, where they're allowed to kind of ride out their contracts, sort of how Neville did before he went back to being Pac.
Right.
They allowed him to run out the rest of his contract, and it was almost a year from his last live televised appearance for WWE programming. Right. And then all of a sudden he appears for Dragon Gate after sitting out a year. So from a talent perspective, what do you think can be done to kind of alleviate? Because remember back in the day, we used to have those 90-day clauses in contracts. After they've been let go, they can't appear anywhere in a wrestling equivalent for 90 days. Right. So now it's with Harper, they've tacked on an extra 6 months.
Because he was out for 6 months recovering.
Injured, yes. So as a talent, what exactly can be done in future contracts to ensure that you're not kind of crippled by I guess the stagnant nature of this kind of the business?
I mean, honestly, nothing. There is, unless you are someone who is a vaunted commodity, like a Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks or a Cody, who have clout, who have a track record that can show that they are, there's a reason why they have this and they would actually bring, you're not going to be able to do much. I mean, honestly, you're really not going to be able to do anything at all, because it's like the contract is going to be what they give you. There's not going to be much negotiation, not much room to negotiate unless you are a big star. But like, we'll take, for instance, somebody that is slaving away on or say like Eddie Kingston, for instance, right? Whatever they give him is what he's going to have to accept. No disrespect to him, but his name does not bring with it the type of eyes, and it's not going to bring a ton of people to the product. See what I'm saying? Like in a way, in the same way that like a Ricochet did, or a Matt Riddle did, right? So unless you are a vaunted commodity, there's not really much that you can do at that point. You have to take what they give you. That's why unions would be important, because a union could then, collectively come together and say, okay, well, this is what we want for this industry. But you are in an industry that essentially is run by one man. So, if he's taking care of a good amount of people, they're going to stay loyal to him.
And that's something actually that made me laugh as you were saying it, because you said it runs through one man, and obviously we know that man to be Vincent Kennedy McMahon. But it's just, here's the thing that frustrates me. And while we're talking about it, this came up over, I guess, the last couple of days with AAW, and All Ego Ethan Page went on kind of a Twitter rant and essentially lambasted AAW for their practices on not allowing talent that they feature to wrestle for other promotions in the Chicago area, namely Freelance Wrestling, Warriors of Wrestling, and Black Label Pro. So not even in the higher, and he doesn't have contracts. He said online on Twitter that he cannot contractually dictate where people go, but he can give yes or no to whether or not those people work on his shows.
Right.
Like, he doesn't tell people, hey, you can't work for them. All he's saying is, if you work for these people, you can't work for me.
Right.
So that's almost a similar thing without having a contract. So I don't want people thinking, well, just don't work for WWE or don't work for quote unquote the man, because you can do whatever you want on the indies. And that goes again to a select number of people that have that ability to work the indies and not care. I read a couple of reports that Joey Ryan was offered, or at least approached, on being a player coach in developmental.
Right.
And what he would have gotten paled in comparison to the money he pulls in on the indie circuit. And he even said in the report, if he was 29, he would have jumped at the chance. But at 39, he's thinking, nah, I'm good. I'd rather just book myself the way I want to be booked, at places I want to be booked for the rates I want to be booked at, and have fun doing it. So it goes back to, again, your point of people who are betting on themselves because they're a known commodity, or because they don't have to be pigeonholed to work with one organization. So,
and the other thing too, with like, when it comes to like negotiating this type of stuff as well, right? So people are always like, I don't understand why wrestlers are signing with the WWE. And it's like, if you think of, like, you have to think about it, because a lot of times people don't really, they only care about the wrestlers when they're in the ring and they're out of the event. That's it. They don't think about the rest of the stuff, right? They don't pay attention. When you look at the interactions that they have online, somebody posts a picture or somebody goes on a rant or what have you about something, people will listen to that. But you don't see people retweeting the same time when you see this person saying, hey, I have X amount of dates left open. Try and get me some, try and help, if you want to see me in a promotion, tag the promotion in it, right?
Yes.
So like that's a hard way to live. Like, and that's how I live as a videographer. I don't work for one firm. I work for multiples. I do most of my work through one firm because they pay me on time, which is an important and a very important thing when it comes to dealings like this. I take less money working with them because I want to make sure I know I'm going to get paid. I don't want to have to, search around and essentially like call every other, at least once or twice a week. Hey, I was supposed to get this check X, 2 weeks ago. Where is it? I don't want to have to chase after a check. Right. And when you are on the indies, that's what you have to do. Like, you're going to have some of those shady promoters where you're not going to get paid. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are legitimate issues. So when you take someone who is going to have, because like a lot of these wrestlers work every day of the week almost, right? There's no off time. The off time is before and after the event, but almost will have worked almost every single day. And that means you have to go fly. You might have to go fly to Mexico, fly to Japan. You may have to go drive from, through 4 or 5 states to get where you're booked at.
Right.
That shit's not fun. Right. And it's also dangerous, like driving on the road like that all the time. So imagine somebody comes to you, right? Say you could have made $100,000 on the indies, right? This is just hypothetical stuff. Say you could make $100,000 on the indies, or even if you're only making like 80,000 on the indies, right? So imagine they come to you and they say, "Hey, we'll offer you, say if it's 80,000, we'll offer you $65,000 a year, right? But you're going to have less of a workload. You're going to be wrestling essentially the same place all the time. Like you have a facility that you can work out in at any time that you want. You have all these resources from people within the industry. Like, I'm going to jump at that, right?
Of course.
Unless you're somebody, like we said, like a Joey Ryan, who has a shtick that he can continue making a ton of money like that, right? Everybody doesn't have that. He is very blessed in that he has a way to make money without having to sign with the WWE. Everybody does not have that liberty. Like, he's like one out of several thousand people that can do that. Right? There's not when you think about how many folks, like a Orange Cassidy's not going to be able to ask the same thing, even though he's hot on the indies, but he's not going to have that same type of thing, right? Brian Cage not going to be able to do the same thing. We might love them, we might love their work, but they don't have the same they don't have the same clout, they don't have the same, the way that Joey Ryan has broken the internet multiple times. Like, he is a known quantity, right? So, and like I said, he is one of the few people that's able to do that.
And I just want to apologize to the listeners right now. My neighbors decided to start mowing the lawn at this point. So if you hear the lawnmower in the background, it's not me mowing the lawn. So me personally, I've always been the guy to bet on himself. I'm always the guy that if I'm not happy in a situation, I try not to bemoan it as long as possible.
Right.
This way I could say, I'm out, or find something better that suits my skill set.
Right.
I mean, look at last year. This time last year, I was living in New York and not happy at my job and with anything that was going on in my life. And I decided to bet on myself and move all the way to Dallas, Texas. And here I am, recording the show with you, in a different lifestyle. So betting on yourself is not a foreign thing. And if it is for people, then I suggest you really get in touch with kind of what your motivations are, because you brought up a really good point. If it's all about the money and not about the culture and the environment that you yourself can set, then you're just spinning your wheels more often than not. But if you said, if Orange Cassidy, let's just say, if Orange Cassidy, because a lot of people are saying he's the new age Joey Ryan, can make $75,000 a year working whatever dates he wants to work, working his style he wants to work, alleviate or eliminate any major bumps that he has to take.
Right.
Why not? Instead of taking, let's say, $50,000 a year to work at the performance center,
Right.
without a promise that you're going to make it to the main roster. Now,
Right.
I know there are a lot of talent that the main roster assigned to NXT to developmental. Shane Strickland comes to mind, Garza Jr., who else? ACH recently got signed, Rachel Ellering and the like.
Right.
Their goal is to make the WWE.
Right.
And a lot of wrestlers will say that it's not their goal. They just want to be happy with what they're doing.
Right.
But for them, especially Shane Strickland, when we've seen him in death matches, this is probably an upgrade.
Yeah.
A major upgrade.
Yeah.
So for those that are saying, or those that are going to say, well, you're selling out by going to WWE, go to AEW.
Yeah, this whole notion of selling out is like
it's a farce.
It's a farce because you are still okay. So as it is now, there's going to be three of the big heads, right? You have WWE, New Japan, and AEW, right? But let's be real here. These are all of these heads are connected to the same beast. This is Cerberus, essentially, right?
Yes.
If we're using mythology. They are all it's all going to get funneled back into the same industry, right? So this whole notion of, there's no selling out because everybody is going to have some fucked up contracts, no matter what, especially as things become more competitive. And like the sooner people realize this, the better off. But facts don't matter.
Well, and then we're leaving out Impact as that potential
Impact, and I wish I want to give Impact and ROH, but like look at what Impact and ROH are doing. Impact is on a channel that nobody has,
right,
and is on Twitch that cannot be instantly rewatched, right? Everybody, like you can DVR Raw and SmackDown, you can DVR or you can watch New Japan whenever, right? But Impact, you got nothing. Like if you didn't watch it, then you're kind of screwed. Like you have to watch everything at the same. That's a terrible model. And while I do applaud them for giving a lot of the younger talent a chance to shine, it's honestly not going to do anything if nobody can see it.
Of course,
and
we know that Impact does have a lot of really good talent on their roster, but it's like the old analogy: if a tree falls in the woods and it doesn't make a sound, well, in reality, it's because nobody was there to hear it fall because they're dead because it fell on them. But in reality of just Impact, I don't have I have Twitch, but I don't use it enough where I could say, okay, I want to see Impact.
Right.
ROH, we've already said, is a dumpster fire.
Right.
I've given up completely on Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Only when they partner with New Japan is it relatively interesting.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't care.
Enzo getting body bagged by Tama Tonga on the mic. Jesus Christ.
Already.
I don't know what Enzo thought he was doing, but Tama Tonga hit you with the ether, the takeover, the bridge is over, like every diss track possible. That's what Tama Tonga did to Enzo yesterday over like a series of like 6 or 7 different tweets. It was terrible. Damn shame what they did to that dog.
Oh, let's not talk about the dog though. But all in all, I guess to wrap up this segment is just to say that I understand that fans are saying people should just suck it up and deal. I understand that fans are saying if you sign a contract, you should abide by the contract. But need I remind you, in the NFL, the owners have the ability, because they are non-guaranteed contracts, to rip up your contract and void it and say, you are no longer of use to me. I'm letting you go. Just like WWE can terminate you at any time. See Enzo and Big Cass. And then what? So for all those people who side with ownership, and then what?
Right.
Because all in all, it gets funneled into the same place, like you just said, Dio. It gets funneled back into someone's pocket, not necessarily the talent's pocket.
Right.
Because I'm the NFL draft is tonight, and to be quite honest, this is the one year I really don't care, because the business of sports, for me, has taken out the enjoyment of sports.
Absolutely.
I like watching wrestling, even though people call it sports entertainment. I do enjoy watching women's sports because they are vastly underpaid for what they do. So I can resonate being a person of color who is vastly underpaid for what they do. So my father instilled that in me to kind of root for those who deserve more because they're better than that or because they've earned it. So that's why I can kind of gravitate toward women's sports. NFL, I just can't. You're literally, it's like wrestling, but with more, I guess, more trauma.
Oh yeah, no, like it's one of those things where it's guaranteed trauma. There's no, like it's both of these things are those industries where it's like when you sign up for it, you have to sign up knowing that you are going to shorten your lifespan. No two ways about it. No two ways about that.
We're literally putting your body into a car wreck every time you get into a wrestling ring.
No, every time you get into a wrestling move, not a ring, anytime you take a bump, right?
Yes.
Because people don't understand like physics and things like that, right? So like I suggest you guys look up like physics and judo, right? So there was like I remember I was watching this thing about how like so judo and jujitsu are both offshoots of jujutsu, if I remember correctly. Jujutsu.
Yes.
So and this was a battlefield art form, right? It is meant for war. It was meant for people that were in armor, essentially, for when they were grappling and such. And like a lot of times, like when you see those like slams and stuff like that, you know, in pro wrestling, it doesn't look like that's bad. These people know how to break fall, right? It's an art in it. It's very precise art on top of that. Now, go and body slam somebody on concrete. See what happens. They're not going to get back up. They aren't. They are not. Go and power bomb somebody on concrete. You're probably going to get a homicide charge, like because it's like their spine and their head is going to impact concrete. They're going to be at least at bare minimum a concussion, right? But like when you slam somebody down, not only is it the force, you know, you have to then calculate the force of gravity, how hard this person is being slammed down, how much gear they have on. So the more gear that you have increases the amount of force that you are going to hit the ground with. Then you have to couple in the person that's throwing you as well. So if they come down on top of you, then you have your force, your gear's force, gravity, and that person falling down on you. So this is there's a lot to this. There's a lot of science, a lot of force, and a lot of hurt that goes into this type of stuff. So yeah, like they both are the WWE, whether anything that's physical like that, where you have to hit other people or hit the ground. Yeah, you are signing up to irreparably change your life.
Of course. And even though you mentioned if you powerbomb someone, you know it's a criminal charge pretty much. But I saw, and this is why I have to stop watching certain videos. I saw almost a World Star adjacent video the other day where there was like it was a really big, I don't know if it was a gang fight or just a fight in general, where someone did a belly to belly gut wrench suplex on someone.
Yeah.
And the dude got up off the concrete and you could tell he was a little like wobbly and a little off, but he kept trying to fight. So I don't want people who see those kinds of things and say, yeah, I could take a power bomb and I'll be good. Nope. That is some crackhead level recovery strength right there.
Yeah.
For those that don't know crackhead strength, that is probably the most hardcore Hulk strength.
Oh yeah, no, I have seen crackheads carry washing machines by themselves.
Yes.
And if you don't know how heavy a washing machine is, and this was a washing machine that had been recently used, so it still had water.
Right.
Like a little bit of water in it. This crackhead couldn't have been any more than 135 pounds. And he had gripped around the washing machine and had it completely off the ground walking down the block.
Right.
that thing weighed way more than he did.
Mm.
But crack does that. Crack shuts off a lot of those things that tell you, hey, your body's getting destroyed while you do this. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
They are tapping into a raw strength that most people will never experience in their lives.
Nope, not even close. And that's the funny thing is that, you know, for as much as we all can lift in the gym and such,
Oh yeah, nah.
That's a whole level of strength that a lot of us won't be able to touch. So
Yeah.
crackhead strength kids, you know, we are the show that you learn stuff and you get buff. So if you want to get buff, have crackhead strength, but don't, you know, don't do drugs.
Don't do
kids.
crack. Don't do crack.
Don't do crack. But
crack is whack.
Going back to the 85, crack is whack. That was a good era. The crack is whack era. From all the PSAs and dare and don't do drugs kids. And
yep.
Okay, before we get out of here, I do want to say one thing about people who spoil things. So with Avengers Endgame coming out this weekend, I know you're going tonight. I'm going Sunday. I've already had someone who was a friend and now they are no longer a friend text me to tell me, hey, since you probably got to see it before I did, and text me this whole thing that happened in the movie.
Right.
I don't like that.
Right.
I don't want to know that. I wanted to wait in surprise on Sunday like everyone else is trying to do. But I know I've been guilty of reading spoilers. Unless it's a movie I don't really want to see, that's when I'll read the spoilers. And I know a lot of people from my past used to call me Captain Spoiler, but I only did it because people I know were not going to watch the movie.
Right.
They had no interest in it. So if you're going to talk about Endgame spoilers, let me just tell you right now, I don't want to talk to you until after Sunday. That is why I've deactivated my apps off my phone. I only can log in through Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram the hard way, which is through a browser. And that takes a lot of effort for me to try to talk to people. So that just a heads up, everybody. Don't spoil all 3 hours and leave your crying kids home. That's another one too. Please
don't take show like if you have a kid that is under the age of, like, honestly, 4 years old is the minimum. I don't think kids below that age should be able to be in movies unless it's like a kids movie, right? Like, I'm sorry, like, y'all can. And I know there's like an argument that people have is like, oh, well, are you saying that we should be able to enjoy things? I was like, yeah, no, you should be able to enjoy things, but you also shouldn't, like, common decency should say, hey, maybe I shouldn't go in here and fuck up all, 100 people that are in this theater right now. Right. Like, there have been times where I've missed entire lines because some child is just screaming like somebody is removing their liver by hand. Like, it's unnecessary. And like with the whole spoiler thing, so like for me, this is my thing. When people like complain about spoilers about shit that's been out for like a decade, no, you cannot complain about spoilers on shit like that. Just because you didn't watch it at the time or have not watched it, you can't say, oh man, spoilers. Like, bro, Lost went off TV like over a decade ago. I'm sorry, like The Sopranos, the same thing. Friends, the same. Like, all this stuff, like this stuff's gone on for it was a long time ago.
Right.
There's the statutes of limitations on that have passed by a long time. And like, so for instance, today I saw people complaining about Infinity War. I'm like, yo, it's been time. It's been plenty of time. You have had plenty of time to watch this stuff.
Yep.
Like, for us, like, when you have something that's as large of an event as Endgame is, that changes the statute of limitations for spoilers for me as well, right? Like, if I have a group of people on Twitter that I talk to on a regular basis, and we all went to see it, and we're talking about it, we're gonna talk about it. Sorry, like, this is what I do, right? So when you have something that is going to affect the cultural zeitgeist the way that Endgame is, you have until Sunday, right? The stuff starts showing now. I already know one person that got to see an early screening of it. Like, you've got The time's there. Like, you still have plenty of time. But after Sunday, right? After Sunday, it's a wrap. We can talk about that shit, right? If you don't want to talk about it, mute it. Mute the people that you see talking about it. Mute phrases. You can go and do custom phrases. Mute Endgame. Mute Marvel. Mute Avengers.
MCU. Anything.
Mute all of the hashtags, right? Mute all that stuff. But I'm sorry, you have until Sunday, and then we're going to talk about that shit. Because like this whole thing that I need to wait because you decided to wait. No. You don't get to do that. You do not. Don't get to do that at all.
Right. Just don't talk. If you don't want to know by Sunday, which is when I'm going to see it, then don't talk to me about it.
Right.
Because I'm going to talk about it. I might not talk about it on my timeline, but I will definitely be talking about it with you.
Right.
You know, we were supposed to talk about Captain Marvel at one point, and then we waited for Kat to go see it.
Right.
Because we wanted to be respectful of our co-host because she wanted to see it.
Right.
Cool. Got you. But I'm not going to be overly worried about Joe Schmo waiting till Tuesday to watch Endgame. Look, man, mute, delete like I did, delete the apps, make it harder on yourself so you don't have to go and see it. The spoilers being put on the internet. It's that simple. Avoid at all costs if you don't want it spoiled for you. And that's what I'm trying to do. So that's my piece of advice where you learn something from me today. Okay? The mute button is your friend.
It is. And it's not like, like it's just not when people are get mad about this stuff. And it's like, I understand not wanting to have things spoiled, but like you have to be reasonable about this shit. You know, like
Right.
if it's being, if this is something, this is literally probably going to be the highest grossing movie. It might end up being like one of the highest grossing movies of all time, right?
Of all time.
So if that means a large amount of the populace went to see it, right? So I'm sorry if you couldn't go see it because, I just didn't feel like going during the rush. Sorry. You just like you have contracts that you signed with the WWE. This is this is like an unspoken rule. Like you only have a certain amount of time to be able to say no spoilers, dude. You only have a certain amount of time because why should all of us not be able to talk about something just because a couple people haven't seen it yet? Right.
And you're going to see it tonight again for those who just tuned in. I'm going to see it Sunday. And if Kat has seen it next time we record, I fully expect us to have a conversation about Avengers Endgame because I feel as if that's a very special, very special episode of the show. And for those who are just tuning in before we get out of here, we are in development of a new show name. We're no longer going to be referred to as the Podcast Champs. So we are going to, as a team, kind of market a new, I guess, brand, if you want to say it that way, where we don't just focus on wrestling. It's about learning things maybe that people didn't know or they had questions. Kat threw out the caveat of, you get buff and you learn stuff or something along those lines. And I like it. So we are no longer known as the Podcast Champs. Just it's Deo, Damian, and Kat for now. And then we will come up with something probably after Endgame because our minds are going to be so irrevocably blown that we don't know what we're going to talk about. But yes, any last words, Dio?
Nah, that's about it. Don't be an asshole and retweet spoilers. And if you are surfing through the net,
keep it to yourself.
Be careful because people are not only they're posting videos, but they're also posting GIFs of said videos, and those are harder to keep track of because they autoplay, as you scroll over stuff. So to those people that are doing shit like that, you can go eat a dick. Like that's uncalled for. But like I said, after Sunday, all bets are off.
All bets are off. And
all
bets are off. And with that, we're going to snap on out of here. Damian at DamianG347, Deo at I'm Just DEO, and we'll have Kat on next week, and hopefully she's seen Avengers, and we can talk about it. Peace.